No, man, but you got to keep going. What am I going to do, quit? That's not an option. You got to keep on keeping on. Life's a garden, dig it? You make it work for you. You never give up, man. That's my philosophy.
Hey gardeners, hope you're all having a great week out in your garden. I'm just out back here checking on my little seedlings. I've got some eggplant and some marigolds here. Our backup tomatoes that we are looking nice actually right now. Some of these are all ready to go. Again, I'd probably grow them and transplant them out into something else to grow them a little bigger before I put them in the garden, but we're working from a little behind this year, so we're going to start getting some of them out in our spaces here this weekend and start growing our tomatoes. I hope everything, again, like I said, is growing well in your gardens. We've got a great show for you today. All right, everybody, let's get growing. All my passionate plant people and garden enthusiasts. Welcome to the Let's Get Growing show right here on the Urban Gardener channel. I'm Enoch. I'm your host today. I hope you're all having a great day, having a great week out in your gardens. As I said, we've got a really, really great show ahead for you today. We've got with us author of Landrace Gardening, Joseph Lofthouse, joining with us for our conversation today on the show. So we look forward to talking to him just a little bit later on. And joining us here in just a few minutes, we've got Brandy, the Suburban Gardenista. She's joining with us here in just a few minutes as well, too. So we've got some great guests and some great conversations coming up here on the show here for you today. So thank you all so much for joining with us here. And you know the drill right here at the top of this show. Definitely click that thumbs up, hit the like button there, as well as subscribe and hit the bell notification so you be notified of all of our upcoming live streams and videos. I've got some videos that are coming out now. I got our pepper series that's coming out. I just released a new video on that. We got another one coming up. I've been working on another garden journal as well too. So I'm really trying to really pump up and gear up and really get out that video content as well for all of you guys as well too. So you guys can get a really good idea of what's growing on in the garden this season too. So follow along with all of our videos as well too, as those are coming out throughout the week as well. And definitely share with all your friends. You know, we don't want to keep the Let's Get Growing show a secret. We don't want to you know, we want people to know about all these great conversations that we get to have here each and every weekend with all these just amazing, great guests that we get to have here, like I said. So definitely share with all your friends, let people know in your garden groups and your garden clubs and, you know, just all of those garden friends out there. Let them know about our show and share with them with them about our show. So definitely do that. Thank you so much. And definitely a big, huge shout out to all of you who are watching us on the replay. Thank you so much for joining with us on your time and catching up with our conversation. It's great to have you as well too. And if you can, jump into the comments section down below. Let me know what you got growing on. Let me know if you got any questions. Let me know if you got any comments, concerns, you know, all that sort of stuff. Suggestions for guests too. I'm always up for suggestions for guests. I know there's people you're watching out there. I know there's some great authors out there of books that you're reading about gardening out there. So I'm sure you might have some suggestions for guests and all that too. So definitely get into the comments of our replay there and let us know any of those sort of suggestions. And you can always just jump in and say hi too. That's totally proper as well too. I love it. I love all the comments, so definitely drop in and do that as well too. And if you have any questions or comments, if you're here with us live, definitely jump into the chat and drop your comments in or questions for our guests. And if you have any questions for our guests, definitely put in big, bold, capital letters so that I can see the questions from the conversation. If you can do that, I will try to keep an eye out for all the questions and try to get those worked into our conversation. So definitely do that. I love it when you guys drop in all of those questions. So thank you so much for doing that. And we do have links down below for all of our guests as well too. You want to go and check out all of those links and check out their content or their books, all of that sort of stuff as well too in those links. And if they have any social media or anything like that, definitely go and check out one of their recent posts or videos or something, and go let them know that you saw them here on the Let's Get Growing show, and just really kind of expand out that community support that we're trying to accomplish here with the show as we're building community through gardening and all of that. So we're so blessed to have all of these just really amazing guests and everything too. If we can just take that little extra step and go over and support them too for their time that they're taking to hang out with us, and then as well to just let them know that you saw them here on the Let's Get Growing show as well too. So right on. Thank you everybody for being here. Like I said, it's great to have you here with us. We've got some great conversations coming up here in just a minute as well too. Like I said, we got some great guests here. I did want to just kind of jump in and say, I wanted to talk about a couple of things here real quick, and then I'm going to jump in and say hi to everybody here. But one of the things that's happened this last week or so, and I mentioned this last, I think, Sunday on the show. I don't know if I got to mention this on last Saturday's show or not, but this was kind of a bit, it's just what, numbers, things happen. We celebrated our 100th show, not too long ago as well too. But, some accomplishments kind of make you go kind of, wow, when it comes down to it, because you never really thought of that. When I first hit like 300 subscribers on the Urban Gardener channel years ago, I thought that was amazing. I couldn't believe that 300 people were watching my channel and what I was doing and everything. So, when it comes down to it, certain accomplishments mean a lot. And this one's really big too, because this really talks about all of you guys. You know what I mean? Because that's what makes these channels and all these sort of things what they are, is you guys out there watching and taking the time to watch the content, to come and watch these shows, to come and do all of that sort of stuff. And so when I noticed this in my YouTube studio, it kind of popped out to me, and I didn't notice it, or I didn't even see it coming up. And so I'm kind of lucky I caught it when I did, because it must have happened probably sometime maybe a week or so ago. But the channel is over 1 million views so far. I mean, we went over 1 million views. That means 1 million times. I mean, seriously, I'm talking about 300 subscribers blew me away, but 1 million times someone clicked one of my videos and went to watch some piece of content that I did. That's really absolutely amazing. And like I said, it's all because of all of you guys, and I'm just so thankful to all of you for all of that. I mean, there's channels out there doing way more and all that sort of stuff, but something like that for me is huge. And that's all, again, like I said, because of you. And I just want to thank you all as well for that. Thank you so much. 1 million views. Wow. I mean, that's just something else when it comes down to it. And also, okay, moving on. Let's talk some gardening though, too, real quick. There's something I wanted to kind of touch on real quick here before we get on to our guests here and all of that. An experience I've had here this last week, and something that just kind of made me think, as somebody who's really kind of moved on to over these years, especially with doing this channel and putting out videos and in some sense being kind of a gardening resource in a way. I've been able to help out a lot of people over these years gardeners and stuff and help them get started with gardening and everything. But every now and then, some things get even a little closer to home than they are online and everything I'm doing through the videos. And in fact, we spent April talking about reaching out and helping new gardeners find out how learn how to garden and do that sort of stuff. So there's a huge mission amongst all of us who are out there putting out gardening content to teach people how to garden. New gardeners, we want to show them the way. We want to be able to take our experience that we've garnered over the years of growing our gardens, all of the mistakes and mishaps and all that sort of stuff, and we want to be able to hand it over to people and be able to help them move along into their gardening journey as well too, right? I mean, it really is a big mission. But then every now and then there's just what we have to understand. There's as much as we want to teach people, you know what I mean? As much as we want to teach people, as much we want to help, sometimes, and this is more, I would say, for even especially in my case, and I think maybe even more in the wider case when it comes down to it, is younger gardeners in that sort of sense as well too, is that some folks are just going to go through and do things, you know what I mean, the hard way. I'll just say the hard way anyways. No matter what you're going to tell them or show them or try to, give them advice for, and somehow, and I've seen this before, and not only have I seen it before in other people, I'm going to tell you this, and this is one of the things, reflection is always the best thing too. I've seen it before, right in the mirror as well too. I mean, I was, I went after, gardening and didn't really go and spend the time learning from other people and stuff. I just kind of went after it. I just was like, I think this is how this should go. This is how this looks. This is how this, I would, from what I've seen, through, my, whatever sorts of connections to gardening I've had before, this is what my idea would be to do. And that's kind of how I set about going about my own gardening. And I had to learn some things, and I had to learn the hard way when it came to some things as well too. It's been the case I've seen with other folks as well. But there's one of those points is that sometimes we've also got to know, as people who want to teach or help gardeners, is there's a point also where we got to kind of back off. And we've got to kind of say, okay, well, you know what? They want to have their garden experience. And if that's the garden experience, then that's fine. You know what I mean? Trial and error, learning is a good way to learn anyways. So if that's going to be their experience anyways, then let it be. You can always be a resource. And and again, too, this is a neighbor and friend in a situation where, you're giving advice and you're trying to help out and everything. I'll just say, the case is, if you're going to get a garden bed set up, one of the biggest pieces of advice I would always give people is, if it's a new piece of space, to do what you can to work weeds and do them the best you can, to work them from the root out the best you can before you start doing anything to the space. I also have advice on, of course, tilling and doing things like that as well too. But sometimes, again, there's people who want to have an experience because there's an idea and a concept in their mind of how things work, and even though you're sharing with them ideas of how it goes, that's not, maybe that's not going to be their experience. All you can do is really kind of step back, you know what I mean? And that's kind of my advice to some folks, is not to really push into that sort of stuff. You know what I mean? This has already been, a couple of bits of experience. A lot of people will take advice and they'll work it and they'll do it because they know and see what you've done and know your sort of stuff. And then there's those who want to do it on their own. And it's always best at some points is just to kind of step back, let them have that experience, and always be, when they're dealing with those things that are going to happen, just be there to help them through that when it comes time. You know what I mean? And then be there to help them through the other things, and always work to help people through things so that they're not ultimately discouraged, even though sometimes if they're not following your advice, there's going to be some things they're going to deal with. Like in this case, they're going to have weed problems for quite a while that I'm just going to be there to help them through. So that's just kind of my advice when it comes to that and that sort of situation. Something that came up and I think is kind of great advice for a lot of folks out there is that we want to help out, be there to help out, and and if folks aren't following advice, we got to just kind of step back and just be there and help them out through those sort of things. It can sometimes feel kind of frustrating in a way, is that you're like, oh no, this is the best way to do that, and then you see them completely do something completely opposite and go ahead with that, and then know that there's going to be trouble on foot for them. And then again, like I said, it's just, again, it's their experience and they're going to have fun gardening and growing anyways. And hopefully those sort of problems and issues won't be too much of a deterrent, and hopefully I can be there to help them through that as well when it comes time to. So right on, everybody, let's get moving along today. We've got a great show for you. Thank you all so much for being here. It's great to see you all today. Definitely want to say thanks to our guest today. We've got Brandy coming up here from the Suburban Gardenista. She's jumping in the chat there as well too. She'll be coming up here in just a couple minutes. And also, I saw in the chat we got our guest Joseph Lofthouse as well too. He's waiting in the wings for our feature conversation later in the show. So thanks to these guys for spending their time this weekend. Great to have them here with us. And of course, it's always awesome to say hi and to have with us our good friend Jay Dixon, our facilitator of the show, joining us from Midwestern Ontario, Canada. Keep an eye out for links that Jay's dropping in during the conversation, and different shout outs and all of that sort of stuff as well too. Thank you, Jay, for being here. Thanks for facilitating our conversation. And our other moderator, Adam Burley, joining us from right up the road here in Central Point, Southern Oregon. He's just right up the road from me. I'm in Southern Oregon as well too. My good friend Adam Burley joining with us. Thank you so much, Adam, for being here today. I see Dusty Flats is in the conversation as well. And let's see here. I know I saw some others joining in here. Let's see, how far back am I from the conversation? Let's see here. I saw Anna in here. Let's see. I see Dave from Bowtie Life in the conversation. Awesome. Excellent. And let's see here. Want to make sure we see. Oh, I might be missing somebody. I hope I'm not missing you. Okay, let's see. I see Rob. Okay, there's Rob in there joining us from Rob's Allotment Gardening over in the UK. Thanks for joining with us. Bohemian Herbology in the conversation too. Thank you for being here. Janet in the conversation. Thanks, Janet, for joining with us today. Oh, I see Jersey Girl here. John writes in the conversation. Awesome, guys. Excellent. Thank you all so much for being here. Thanks for jumping in. Thanks for yeah. Let's see. Oh yeah, I see MSJ Gardner too. Awesome. Great to see all of you here. Crippled Cannabis Cowboy too. Awesome. Great to have all of you here again. Like I said, we've got a great show. We've got some great guests coming up here. Let's get these conversations moving along right after just a real quick short break, and then we'll get going along with our first guest here today.
Hi, my name is Charles Malky, biologist and plant expert with Ivory Organics, where we grow cool plants, and author, Saving the World with the Home Garden. Ivory Organic 3-in-1 Plant Guard has 7 natural oils that protect your plants, not just from the summer heat as well as winter cold, but also protects your plants from damaging insects and rodents. The oils in the product include castor, cinnamon, clove, garlic, peppermint, rosemary, and spearmint. These oils are natural insect and rodent repellent oils, which are encapsulated by the base powder, offering your plants months of protection at a time. One application per year will suffice for protection against damaging summer sunburn and winter sun scald, but if the target is pest, application as much as 2 to 3 times a year may be necessary.
Hi everyone, this is Sarah from Sarah's Seed Shop here with this week's trivia question. Which of the following plants is lettuce most closely related to? A. Sunflower, B. Spinach, C. Kale, or D. Celery? We'll be back with the answer a little later in the show.
Right on, right on, right on. You know the answer to Sarah's trivia question. Jump into the chat there and let us know what your guess is. Or if you want to, jump into the comments if you're watching on the replay too. Let me know if you got it right. You know what I mean? Let me know if you got Sarah's trivia question right. I don't know if I was really I took a wild guess. I ended up being right, but I'm gonna tell you what, I took a wild guess on this one actually. So hope you got the answer. Maybe some of you already know. I mean, I'm sure some of you might know already, but definitely go and check out Sarah's Seed Shop, sarahseedshop.com. Awesome, everybody. Like I said, we got some great guests ahead for you today. And for our first guest, let's check out, are you following me?
Are you following me? Are you following me, dude?
All right. So for Are You Following Me today, we've got joining with us Brandy, the Suburban Gardenista. Hey, Brandy, how are you doing? Thanks for joining us today on the show.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me. I feel so honored. This is just such a pleasure. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, we always say thank you for spending your time with us to, share with us today and share your garden story and garden journey with all of us. We always love meeting new gardeners here on the Let's Get Growing show. So let's give you just a minute here. Introduce yourself to everybody and let everybody know all about Brandy, the Suburban Gardenista.
Sure. Thank you. Yeah, so I've been gardening for about 15 or so years, and I got started in kind of the typical perennial gardening in a new home where I didn't have any gardens there. I used to grow up in a home where my mom had beautiful gardens, and I just kind of took it for granted, and all of a sudden I didn't have any, and I just dove in right straight away, and it took a lot of hard work and a lot of learning, and through that really fell in love with perennial gardening. So really, I just, especially coming from like a clean slate to where I am now, is just the impact of planting something, having it there and grow bigger and better each year. And then about 5 years ago or so, I really had a light bulb go off and I discovered native plant gardening. And now I have just right on jumped to that bandwagon. And so throughout all of this, I've just really tried to start sharing my learnings. I'm a researcher at heart, so I really like to dig in to really understand how to make these plants happy in my space and to share that through my Suburban Gardenista. So I started this up a couple years ago, and I started sharing some techniques, and that has really got attention. But really, my secret is trying to pull people in and then feed them some native plant gardening info and hopefully have that light bulb go off in their minds as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's really great. And I kind of like that progression, in some ways for me, I've become more familiar with, the importance of natives and native plants and all of that as well too. That's going to be something I'll be talking about and featuring here kind of later in the season as well too. I have a local program called the Pollinator Project, and we're going to take some of our more public facing spaces that we have here in our garden spaces, and we're going to invite them in to kind of help do a couple of little installations to kind of promote native plant gardening and doing that sort of stuff, because again, it's it is, I think it's a part of a lot of our journeys as gardeners. We initially start gardening and growing, and because maybe food or maybe even just a hobby, who knows, whatever the reason is, you start gardening, we start learning, and then we start figuring certain things out. And then again, like you said, I love the idea, perennials are a big thing too. Like, oh, I just got to plant it once and just kind of care for it a little bit each year, and I don't got to redo it and start from seed each. I mean, that's a good one too. But native plants are really, really important though too, the more we think about them too. I mean, I really got into beekeeping. I wanted to be a beekeeper for a long time, and all of that. But then when you start learning about the impacts of bees and native bees and things that are going on, and then you get to the even more importance of native plant gardens too. So yeah. Tell me a little bit too about some of your favorite native plants.
Sure. Yeah, it's kind of hard to pick because I started out with one, and that's what kind of drew me into native plants when I started learning about them. And really, I think the things where I find very cool critters. I really love plants, host plants for butterflies. I want to see the butterflies come. I want to find their eggs on the plants. I want to see their little caterpillars grow. I call it rescuing. I've rescued an egg or two to grow the caterpillars in a little terrarium. And I've done that for my children, but really I think I was more excited than anybody just to see the metamorphosis and learn. And so I really enjoy planting host plants. And for those of you that may not know, pollinators and butterflies, etc., they're really picky creatures. And so some of them are very specific. Most are very specific to a particular plant. So if you want to encourage a particular butterfly, native butterflies or other moths, etc., to come to your space, you want to plant their host plants so that you can encourage their whole life cycle to thrive. And so I've been trying to do that a little bit more. I've found monarch butterfly eggs and raised those, swallowtail butterflies. And I even had a very cool, it was called a clear-wing hawk moth, which is a very neat come to my space, and trying to plant more plants to help support many different creatures, but I'm pretty excited about butterflies in particular and their little caterpillars.
Yes, I mean that really is the goal, but also the real benefit of doing and having these sort of plants or native groupings and things like that throughout your garden, wherever you can kind of find those sort of things, to be able to encourage those sort of critters to be in your garden, because it really is great to have them. Do you have any tips or anything for folks who want to get started growing some native plants in their gardens? You know what I mean? Maybe some folks are just now learning right now. Maybe I should get in and get some native plants. And you got any tips for them?
Absolutely. I think one of the things that's really important is you can just start with one. You can just do a little bit of research, look into what is native in your area, because what is native in your area is very likely that it's not native in mine. We're at different ends on the North American continent. And so it's important to look into what's native in your particular area. And there's lots of different sources now. There's lots of great info out there on that. One great source is Pollinator Partnership. So I know that they have an organization in the States and then also in Canada. So we've got Pollinator Partnership Canada, and they've got some great eco-region guides to help people know what is native in their area. You can just start with one. You can start with one. Just start planting. Just start now. Just start today. And you will be happy. You can see results almost immediately in some cases, especially when you purchase a plant that might be bigger perhaps and bloom earlier. I think that's one thing that is helpful to know, is that when you're planting perennials, when you're planting native plants, and you get a little plug, so a little plant like this, in some cases it may take 2-3 years, in some cases even longer than that, for the flowers to bloom and for you to see the whole life cycle of the plant. And so it's helpful to know to be patient with yourself, to be patient with the plants, because it takes a bit of time to fill in and to become established. So you absolutely can grow from seed. You can grow from little plugs. But if you can get a transplant from a plant swap or from a friend that
Yeah.
has it, you might be able to see blooms and a bigger plant sooner. So if that's a possibility in your world, and just to make sure you're getting it from a native plant source as well. So not going and hunting it out into the
Right.
forest or anything. Don't help yourself. Go get it from a
Yeah.
reputable, ethical source. There's lots out
Yeah.
there. So yeah, I think those are some tips. Some just,
I think that's probably the really good piece of advice right there for sure. Yeah. Let's not go digging up native plants out of their native
don't do
spots
that.
just so that we can put them into our spot and look at them. Let's just go out and look at them where they are. And like you said, there's people out there propagating and doing some really good work. And there's more and more people doing that sort of work of propagation of native plants specifically. There's a podcast I follow and listen to. I would love to have him on the show. I'm not too sure if he would, but he has a show anyway. He's also a person who's really into botany and all of that sort of stuff, but in native plants big time. But he has a channel, and maybe if people are interested enough, he's a little brash, but his channel's called Crime Pays, but Botany Doesn't. And he's actually assembling a list, and he's getting people together to assemble a nationwide and hopefully a worldwide list of people of native plants, you know what I mean, or native plant nurseries and things like that. So I would give that sort of advice. Where would you say people could do otherwise, until he gets that great grand list put together? What would your advice be for people to get some native plants locally?
Well, I have a very good source, which I will mention in a minute. But first of all, I would definitely say, like, there's more, like you're saying, there's more and more people that are propagating. There's even, I'm seeing it at grocery stores. I'm seeing it at more of the like kind of common garden centers. But just to note that on like the garden tag, you want to be looking for the plant name, the common name, but the Latin name specifically is what you're looking for, and nothing in quotations. If you see like, let's say it's a butterfly weed and you see like super summer butterfly weed, that's a cultivar or it's a nativar. It's being altered in some way. So if you're looking for the native species, you want it to be the Latin name that you're looking for. In that one in particular, you're looking at Asclepias tuberosa. So, that those kind of Latin words that when you first start learning, you're like, what does this even mean? It does take a bit of time to get used to that. It is another language that you might have to start learning on the side, but it's worth it to make sure you're getting the native plants. But I will put in the chat later when I'm off of here and listening in. There's a fabulous source of native plant nurseries, a map that was set up by Rick Gray. It's called it's bit.ly/Rix, RIX, capital N, capital P for native plant, and then sources. And it's for all of North America. It's a really, really, really great source. He's like a native plant guru in Ontario. He's written a book on native plants in Southern Ontario. Also highly recommend. But this is a great source of native plant nurseries for all of North America. So maybe we should connect those two.
Yes, exactly. Is what I'm thinking as well too. And don't worry about it, because I'll bet you Jay is going to beat you to getting that link for that into the chat as well too, especially being someone from Ontario as well too. Right on.
Canadian, thank you.
Yes, exactly. So right on. That's great advice. Like I said, more and more native plants. Let's see. So again too, how can you? So again, I wanted to, you gave me some good questions here. Let's talk a little bit more about pollinators. What are some unique pollinators that you've seen come visit your gardens from some of these native plants that you had? We talked about that's one of the benefits of having them. You know what I mean? So what are some of these cool ones that you're seeing?
Well, I have already mentioned my love for butterflies and some other cool creatures, but one in particular that I thought was an interesting find was the leafcutter bee. So the leafcutter bees, for those of you that
Those are
don't
cool.
know, yeah, they go and they literally chop off a little circle from the leaf, and then they carry that out, and then they'll go and put that into you like empty stems. I happen to have a bee box, which some people like that idea of, and some people
Yeah.
don't. But I did, and I actually saw it take the little leaf and go right in. So it just super exciting seeing these new critters. I really love finding them and then capturing like a picture and then putting that on iNaturalist. So then you can learn
Mm.
what are these new creatures that are in your garden, what attracts them, what do they need, and then you can help to support the local pollinators by addressing those needs in your garden and through native plants or providing habitat with leaving the leaves and things like that. So
Well,
yeah,
that's perfect.
and there's so
I
many
love that.
more.
I love that advice because, again, too, coming back to this person I've been listening to recently, Joey, over at that channel Crime Pays. He says that same exact stuff. You're giving it the same thing I'm hearing, which is great, and especially like you were saying before as well too about when you're looking at plants, common names can mislead you all the time.
Oh,
So
yeah.
don't go by anything that just has a common name. You want to
Well,
have those. Yeah.
yeah, it's
The
even with the common names, like I often use common names. I do a native plant garden tour every month just to kind of show how the native plants are
Mhm.
evolving through the whole growing season so that people can help better plan their own gardens when knowing what to expect and whatnot. And some of the common names, even the ones that I'm using, they can be very confusing, even like a black-eyed Susan. Black-eyed Susan, there's like a number of different cultivars, nativars, there's some are totally different species. So it's
Yeah, yeah.
you have to be careful. So you really want to focus in on the native on the Latin names for sure.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And that's one of his biggest piece of advice is too, is like just spend the time to kind of figure that out, versus common names and that sort of stuff as well too. And like Joseph's in there saying he recommends iNaturalist as well. Same with Jersey Girl, and same with that channel that I listen to. He's always telling people to spend time to upload things to iNaturalist, more people. So again, that's something I've got to get caught up on and do more myself. I've got to do that for sure as I'm learning more and more about this sort of stuff myself too. But it's really great that, you're spending time out there learning a lot of this stuff for us. You know what I mean? So we can get some great advice from you as well too. So again, I also want to make sure everybody gets down below and follows the link to Brandy's channel and all of that as well too. But
Yeah.
before we let you go, what are some lessons that you've learned and have come across? You know what I mean? Some of these things that maybe you want to pass along to everybody, that you've learned about native plant gardening in this sort of transition you've kind of made.
Thank you. Yeah. So I think one of the main things is you're going to do it wrong. It doesn't matter. There's so many people who are like super purists and there's like the right way to do it. And you may not do it that way, and that's okay. You're trying. I think
Yeah.
the point is that you're trying, you're learning more. I think it's easy to just fall into, oh, that plant is pretty. Let's put it in the garden. Oh, that plant works well. Let's just keep it going. Like an invasive
Mhm.
plant, for example, oh, it grows well everywhere. That doesn't mean it's good for the garden or good for our natural ecosystems. And so I think it's great that people are interested in learning. And if you get it wrong, it's okay. At least you're trying. I know that I have done that. Before I learned more about native plant gardening, I for sure planted invasive plants. There was English ivy in my
Mhm.
garden, and I had to
Yeah.
remove it. It was a pain in my butt, and this is just it's just the way it goes. So as long as you are open to things, I think it is also a learning to me. Speaking about native plants is how, and I kind of knew this, but how connected people are to the ways that they've done things and how personalized they make gardening. So I just think it's important for people to be patient with themselves if you are learning new things and they're kind of backwards from how you normally do things. Maybe you like a really tidy garden and a pure green lawn, and people are saying, get rid of your lawn and add more pollinator things and kill the lawn or whatever things that
Mm.
might trigger emotions about like, well, this is
There you
something
go.
that
Yeah.
you've focused on for so many years. Be open-minded to learning new things, and maybe you'll enjoy it even more. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think native plant gardening, it's funny because it feels new, but it's really like it shouldn't at all because these
Yeah.
existed far before we did.
Yeah.
It's just unfortunate that with the way that we have gardened for so very long, that they have seemed scary, or like they're weeds and they're going to take over. But there are many, many, many great options that are beautiful, even despite horrible names like hairy beard tongue, or terrible names. There's beautiful plants that work really well in a suburban garden, and so many of us have space to make space for these plants, even in a small front yard garden, a balcony garden. If you have a backyard or even more space, you can incorporate this in any context. So those are just a few of my learnings, but happy to chat more anytime.
Yeah. Well, I know. I think in a way I was kind of thinking about as you were talking about that. So, I was kind of talking about before we got discussing things about kind of teaching and showing people things, and sometimes individuals, and especially younger folks learning gardening, just kind of have an idea already in their mind and they go after it in that way and they make a bunch of mistakes. And then later on, if you can kind of nurture them a little bit through those mistakes, maybe they'll come around to a lot of that knowledge and learning through the process. But I think in a way, there's almost a reflection of kind of us as people. Like as people, we just kind of went at things, and didn't really kind of think about the stuff around us. We didn't look at how we connected and all that sort of stuff. So as people, we kind of did that. And now there's a lot more as we're learning more and more in recent years too, about native plants and the importance of native plants and what they really mean to all of our spaces around us, and how they can be implemented and brought into our garden spaces as well too, is really, really important. And it's just something I think we've come to in some sort of mistakes we've kind of made, and we're just kind of coming back to learning that.
I think too, when we think about, bigger issues, the biodiversity crisis, climate change, things like that, they seem very out of touch, like we can't do anything about it. And I feel like this is a very tangible thing that we can do to help support. And if you think about all of us, and if we all could do a little bit, like how much of an impact that could make. So it is something that you can do in your own space, and you can start today.
Yeah, exactly. Well said. So awesome. And again, too, anything else you want to add before we head out here today? You want to let everybody know where they can find you and all of that too?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. I've got my YouTube channel that I focus on. I share about a video. I'm not a super YouTuber. I got other things going on in my life, so I do my best. I put out a video about once a month, maybe 2 videos a month if we're lucky. I've also got my Instagram account where I share pictures, information, native plants, pretty plants, whatever. But on the Instagram as well, I really like to share other like-minded groups stuff. So I consider myself like an amplifier. So I'll share things about events or native plant sources, or job opportunities, volunteer opportunities. So I have those in my little highlights. So you can find those on Instagram as well. And it's a little bit more engaging with the chitter chatter back and forth on Instagram. So happy to chat in on any venue, and also happy to chat anytime about native plants. My family, they're done with it. So I love speaking to people who are into plants and into gardening, because it's, you can speak the same language. It's nice.
Yeah, and again too, that's what's so fun about being able to get together here on the weekends here on our show and get to meet each other and hang out with each other and to have all these fun conversations we don't get to have a lot of the time throughout the rest of the week with everyone else who just doesn't want to put up with all of our garden stuff. But you know what? It's great to be able to gather here together each and every week. And again, like I said, really awesome to have folks like yourself join with us and get to meet you as well too. So everybody, go down below in the description there and go check out Brandy's channel, the Suburban Gardenista. Go learn about more native plants and how you can get them implemented into your garden spaces as well too. And like I said, go check out one of her recent videos or posts or something like that. Let her know you saw her here on the Let's Get Growing show. And again, thank you so much, Brandy, for being here. It was really, really awesome to have you here with us today.
Thank you so much. It was very much my pleasure.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you.
Hey gardeners, thanks for tuning in to our show today. We'll be right back at it here in just a moment. I just wanted to take a second here to highlight our regular videos and features here on the Urban Gardener channel. Our weekly garden journals, and our incredible featured visits.
The answer to this week's trivia question is A. Lettuce belongs to the Asteraceae family, the same plant family containing sunflowers, asters, and chicory. Evidence of this can be seen in the small chicory-like flowers that lettuce produces when it begins to go to seed. Thanks for watching. Head over to Sarah's Seed Shop where you can find garden seeds at unbeatable prices. Enjoy the rest of the show and have a great day.
So, all right. Did you get that answer right? I saw some of your guesses there in the chat. I think Sarah really got us a good one today there, because like I said, I just threw out a wild guess when it came down to it, and I was lucky and I got it right, just throwing out a wild guess. But yeah, sunflowers, Asteraceae, that's interesting. I'm gonna have to definitely go in and look into that a little bit more and check that out the next time my lettuce and those sort of things start to flower, and that as well too. I find that to be really, really interesting. And again, thank you to Sarah for her weekly trivia here for us, and go and check her seed shop out at again, it's so fun to say Sarah's Seed Shop. Go check out Sarah's Seed Shop at sarahseedshop.com, where you'll find some of those really great essential garden seeds, great heirlooms. You're going to find the best value anywhere. I know there's a lot of seed companies out there, but it's great to support some of the smaller ones, especially ones that are giving you such great value. You won't find any better value anywhere else than at sarahseedshop.com. And have you guys been checking out the show lately? Have you been watching some of our recent episodes? We've kind of been on kind of a real kick with authors lately. Had a lot of great authors on the show. Last week, we started off our Saturday show. We had on with us Jules Acton. She came back, actually. We didn't have a good connection with our first conversation we had a little while back ago. So we brought her back on to talk about this just really amazing book that she wrote called Oak Lore. Adventures in a World of Extraordinary Trees. This book is just really exceptional. If you just want to read something, it's a lot about these really ancient oaks in the UK, but really it's for tree lovers. If you love trees, you love natural things, you love the world, that sort of stuff, definitely go check out that book. Really, really great book. And then we also got to meet Julia Dimecos. She came back on the show, the gardening girl. That was a really fun conversation as well too. So you want to go back out and check last Saturday's show if you didn't check out last Saturday's show as well. And the Sunday edition. We are here both Saturday and Sunday. The Sunday edition of the show last week was the third Sunday of the month, which is our monthly gardening book club. I know we've had a lot of authors on, but we do feature one book each and every month for our monthly gardening book club with my co-host, my good friend Mark Boucher Colbert, Mr. NBC. And this last week, we had the pleasure of talking with Craig LaHoulier, Epic Tomatoes. This book is just amazing. Loved checking out this book, How to Grow and Select and Grow the Best Varieties of All Time. Just a really awesome book. I've for years now been in the bookstore flipping through its pages, wanting to buy it and get it and take it home with me. But it was great to finally have Craig on the show for a monthly book club to really forced me to get out and go buy that book and get it. So great book, really highly suggest it. And if you didn't get to check out that conversation, Craig is just a wealth of knowledge in growing tomatoes. You'll definitely want to go back and check that out as well too. Right on, man. Like I said, we've got lots and lots of great conversations here each and every Saturday and Sunday here on the show, 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 2 p.m. Eastern, right here on the Urban Gardener channel. You don't want to miss out. And especially don't want to miss out on great guests like we have here with us today. Today, we've got a really great guest, someone I've been wanting to talk to for a while now. I've known this person for several years now. I've met him and talked to him and had little short conversations here and there. I think for about 7 years or more now since I've been, or 7, maybe 8, but going back all these years I've gone to the National Heirloom Exposition. Joseph's always out there with Baker Creek. He's always hanging out talking about landrace gardening and everything too. But he's here with us today as our featured guest.
You never know when you might learn something, and that's what this is about for me. These are people that I admire. Please welcome my next guest.
All right, everybody. Let's welcome Joseph Lofthouse, author of the book Landrace Gardening. Oh yeah, I got my copy right here. Just came in for me, so I'm gonna have to get down and digging into this here. Really was flipping through before the show, and just wow. I mean, there's a lot of really good stuff here. I'm really excited about checking that out. But luckily enough, we have you here with us today. We could talk all about it right here. So thanks again, Joseph, for being here on this show with us.
Thank you, Enoch. It's a pleasure to be here, and what a fun show. All those little things going on, and just good job.
Right on. Excellent. Yeah, I like to bring a little bit of fun, a little variety, a little this and that, here on the weekend conversation for gardening and everything that we're doing here. And again, like I said, I was just telling everybody just a second ago, we've met and known each other and seen each other over the years, many different times at the exposition and everything. And I saw you this last time at the last show and everything. And so I made sure I wrote you down on my list, and you were up there. I was like, I gotta make sure I get Joseph here. I gotta talk about landrace gardening, because it's just been really something that I think I've been connecting in other ways and other thoughts that I've been thinking about certain things a little bit more, but you really put it together in the whole idea of what it's about. And so let's just really dig in and talk about that. Before we started the show, you kind of gave us a real quick elevator pitch on it. Let's start with that real quick, and then let's just kind of like really get into it and dig into landrace gardening.
Sweet. So the idea behind landrace gardening, or adaptation agriculture as I've been calling it recently, is if you allow genetically diverse plants to cross-pollinate, and save seeds from it, then they can solve problems for themselves that people are trying to solve with poisons, with amendments, with labor. And so it's just a way to super simplify gardening, make it more reliable and consistent. When I originally started market farming, I had a really hard time because I plant the heirlooms, and they wouldn't do good for me because they are from far away and long ago. they don't know how to grow in my ecosystem.
Mm.
And if I planted the hybrids, then they depended on the chemical inputs, the the poisons, the fertilizers, the compost, and I wasn't willing to pay for those kinds of things in my gardening. So I had a really difficult time growing anything at all.
Yeah.
But I found if I save seeds from what survived every year, that they would adapt themselves to my ecosystem, and the ecosystem would do like 80% of the selection for what varieties would grow well for me. And it changed my whole world.
Yeah. Yeah, in a way, like I said, I think I've been kind of stepping my toes into the idea itself without really the label or the this and that. And I think a lot of us, I mean, through experience, we kind of see some of that, right? As gardeners,
Mm-hmm.
we'll grow something and then, the seed will drop. And then the next year that plant's just like, wow, okay, it came up. It's a volunteer, but it sure looks greener. It sure looks a little heftier. You know what I mean? Than that one I grew last year. And then, you grow it, you let it drop seed. And the next year you're like, whoa, wait a minute. Okay, wait a minute. Now this thing's looking like even greener, even heftier. Look at, and it's really got its thing going on, and really that's just kind of that. I think with something we kind of see kind of in some way, if we're growing certain varieties year in and year out throughout our garden, saving the seeds. And if we're just gardeners doing that, we're kind of already have, like I said, in a way, dipped our toes into landrace gardening, right?
Exactly. Because when we buy seeds from a seed company, they might have been grown in the Netherlands or Oregon or China, and
Yeah.
they don't know how to live in my garden. But if I save a seed that has already reproduced in my garden, it knows the ecosystem, it knows the insects, it knows the sunlight, and they can really thrive.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's really, what do you think are some of the, like, if we're just really starting to think about landrace gardening, really dig into this concept, really, what are some of these initial things you think?
So one of the things that I think is really beautiful is just saving our own seeds.
Yeah.
Because if we're saving our own seeds without any plant breeding, without any understanding of, any science or anything, we're selecting for varieties that do better for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And so, yeah, so saving seeds is a big one. Something I love to do, again, as I said, with several varieties that I grow often and doing that sort of thing. So saving seeds for one. But first, sometimes we're accessing seed just to get started though, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Well,
so, and I thought that was interesting as you're pointing out, because again, too, we all got ideas and things about different labels of seeds, hybrid, open pollinated, heirloom, and all that sort of stuff. But even an heirloom, like you said, that you ordered from a company somewhere, is still got to go through a process, you know what I mean, in order to become its best potential plant, right?
right. Well,
Because it's grown somewhere else.
Yeah, one thing that Brandy said that really resonated with me is she threw out the phrase of super purists. And I want to get away from that. And I give people permission to allow things to cross pollinate, to allow change in your garden, so that, and we don't have to follow all these seed saving rules about so many plants and, so far isolation distance and, all that crazy making stuff. Just save your own seeds. If they cross pollinate, chances are they'll be stronger than what your original varieties were, and they'll be more locally adapted. And so I try to tell people, this is something that humans have been doing for 10,000 years. We don't have to be intimidated by professionals and plant breeders and all these rules about saving seeds. We
Mm-hmm.
just need to go into our garden and love on our gardens and save
Yeah.
seeds from what you love.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
That's
and
no,
then
go ahead.
the second part of that would be sharing those seeds with your community.
Mm-hmm.
And because those seeds that become part of the community, there's a lot of safety and security in having those kinds of seeds in our community. Because if the mice eat all of my bean seed and I'm growing the same local variety of bean seed as my next door neighbor, she
Mm-hmm.
can share seeds with me.
Yeah.
And we become really resilient and reliable and consistent when we start saving seeds as communities rather than as individuals.
Yeah. No, that's really, really a great point to make, because I think that's one of our big um goals or focuses, in a sense, is community, as we're moving forward, more so in recent times too, is I think community becomes more and more important. We were going back, and I kind of touched on this just a little bit earlier in the show. We spent all of April promoting national, I don't gardening month, or world gardening month. It was the month of April for gardening, and we were promoting, actually going out there and reaching out to local neighbors and people. And one of my ideas was to take some of the seeds from my garden that I save and go over to my neighbors and hand them out to them to encourage them to start their own gardens. So that was something we were already kind of doing and all of that. But I think in that comes this idea in this process too, as well, is another thing, not just things that we grow, but my garden friend down the road, who's been growing whatever variety of something he's been growing for year in and year out, and he shares his seeds with me. I'm already a few steps ahead of the game now with growing the best potential plant that I can in my garden, right? Because
Right.
we've shared seeds right there with each other locally, right?
And and I find that the local seeds always grow better for me than seeds that I bought from far away.
Right.
Um, Usually they're fresher seeds, so they germinate quicker, they grow more robustly, but then they're also locally adapted.
Hmm.
And between those two, the local seeds just do so much better.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's really, really too, when it comes to sharing seeds, might be something you think about as well before you're sharing seed, as well, as like, how long have I had this? Is this something I just bought this year and I just saved my first year of seed off of it? I mean, maybe you share it and you say, yeah, this is the case though. You know what I mean? In
Hmm.
that sort of thing, if you're sharing it with another gardener, that sort of thing. But I think there's something in the idea also too of doing the work. you know they're
Right,
bringing some varieties into your local area, through heirlooms that have been grown somewhere else, right?
right. Well,
Bringing something that's nice and new and different, and maybe you haven't got, or some neighbors don't have around, and you bring it in and you do the work for a couple of seasons, and you
mhm.
develop that seed to share around with everybody. So
When I buy like squash seed from a seed company, like
yeah.
75% of the varieties will just outright fail for me because I grow up high elevation in the mountains. The cold air comes down out of the mountains all summer long.
Hmm.
But then I save the seeds from those and replant them, and I have just the most beautiful squash. And yeah, the willy-nilly promiscuous pollination. I mean, I don't like my sweet corn to mix with my flower corn,
Right.
but I don't care if two squash varieties that are both beautiful varieties cross with each other, because the offspring will always be beautiful varieties.
Yeah.
I never had a squash that ended up terrible because it crossed with some other squash. Um, they
Okay.
tend they tend to have traits that are halfway in between the traits of the parents. So if you're starting with a Hubbard and a banana, You get the savory of the Hubbard and the sweetness of the banana combined into one squash. You know,
Okay.
just a beautiful hybrid.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and again too, there could be some fun in that, right? It's just trying something new or different and just allowing for something just to be what, like I said, it's just that can create for some interesting fun in your garden, right?
Right.
So
And
sometimes we're worried. I mean, like for me, and again, I don't think cross pollination has worked out too well for me in general for
uh
peppers, right? So
right. Well,
if I'm saving those, I'm isolating and I'm doing that sort of stuff. But it's interesting though sometimes, when
well,
when you let a couple of them just go, and I've done that.
I don't like my sweet peppers to get mixed up with my hot peppers. And so I
Okay.
always grow my sweet peppers separate from my hot peppers.
Yeah.
But I don't care what my sweet peppers look like as long as they're sweet peppers. And I
Right.
don't care what my hot peppers look like as long as they're hot peppers.
Yeah.
One of the things that really surprised me when I started saving my own seeds is that I was inadvertently selecting for beautiful flavors in my squash and in
Mm.
my peppers because I wasn't going to save seeds from anything that tasted gaggy. And so, as a market farmer, I ended up having a reputation of selling the most beautiful flavored vegetables that anyone could ever buy. And I didn't intend that. It just happened by accident because I was tasting each fruit before I saved seeds from it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I'm kind of similar with the peppers in a sense. For me, if I'm going to save a variety, I'm going to take the time when it comes to it, and I don't do it very often. It's just only if I'm like not finding that variety somewhere else that I
Mm-hmm.
can get or not. It's just it's the one thing that I will just take the time to isolate and keep, so I can keep certain variety and certain strains and things going.
Mm-hmm.
But that's on the rare sense. And then, like I said, every now and then I just like this. They pop up as volunteers, and I got to pull them out and get my new containers set up each year. But every now I'm like, okay, well that one looks really nice and strong. Let's just let it be, and then I grow it, and then just to see what pops up and happens. Because again, like you said, sometimes it's fun just to let some things be and just to see
Mm-hmm.
what you get. You know what I
Right.
mean? When it comes down to it. And again, some crosses can be interesting, how and what traits they take from each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that everybody should promiscuously pollinate every crop that they
Oh,
grow.
absolutely. Yeah.
Because I love my yellow crookneck squash.
Mm-hmm.
And it always has to be yellow. It always has to have that little neck that I can cut up the neck and throw away the rest of the squash when I cook it. But I might grow 10 varieties of yellow crookneck that have different leaf shapes, different vine types, but they always got to be yellow, and they always got to have that long, skinny neck. And
Oh
then
yeah.
I'm just in my squash heaven.
I love it. Yeah, and seeing there's just some things we're particular about that we find within that, and that's just fine too. And I think really ultimate point is just this, like you were talking about before, is this kind of hard line to certain things that we do. In some senses, we shouldn't, we got to be a little more looser in how we handle about. But it's good to know how certain things work well and work right to make things the way we want them to be optimally too. You know what I mean? And I
Mm-hmm.
think that kind of comes
Right.
back to the importance of understanding the idea of what's going on behind this kind of generational seed saving thing that's happening in our garden, which is landrace gardening.
Right. So to me, there are two criteria that are overwhelming or more important than anything else. And that is, first, the variety has to be productive for me. It has to
Hmm.
make seeds. And second, it has to taste just absolutely amazing. And if
Oh yeah.
those two things are under control, I don't care what color it is, what shape it is, as long as it's productive and tastes beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. There you go. Keep it simple.
Mm-hmm.
Keep it simple with it. That's really great. So any other like important things about adaptation agriculture, landrace gardening, and things that again too you've touched on the idea of one good reason too is creating the stronger generation of plants also creates resistance too, right?
Exactly. Like in my garden, I have squash bugs. They live in my garden, but they never bother the squash because the squash and the bugs over like 15 years have figured out how to cooperate with each other. But one time I invited a neighbor, well, an intern, to grow some squash in my garden, and she planted them, and the squash bugs just pounced on them, and they got all these diseases. And I know you shouldn't laugh at other people's misery, but I was so happy because those heirloom seeds that she bought that had no connection at all to my garden just totally failed.
Yeah.
And it's like, and it was nice for me to get an object lesson that yes, those things really do exist in my garden, but they're not a problem.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, though, too, and that would be good. That's a point there too. Is like you said, we're going to bring in an heirloom, and you're going to have to do the work in a sense. If this is something you're doing on purpose, bringing something into a new place, because again, we might not be considering this. There's a lot of other considerations that we think about. Is my soil bad? Is it in the wrong spot? There's a lot of other things we're looking at, but it might just be the fact that the seed just isn't used to your area, and those critters, like you said, will just pounce on them. So if you want to continue to have that variety, you're going to have to fight that off, and you're going to have to keep that plant going as strong as you can, right? And then grow it again generationally and get it to, again, kind of adapt over time to dealing with those pressures. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah. And you talk about doing the work. And what I have found is that the ecosystem does 80% of the selection. And all I have to do is just plant the thing, save seeds, the next year and the year after that. And
so in that sense, would you say like grow several of whatever kind of seeds you have, and then you let the strongest plant and do all that sort of stuff and save and just kind of do it from that point of view versus really trying to get in there and mitigate issues?
Exactly. I do zero record keeping because one day I was in my garden and I figured out that I had spent more time record keeping than I had actually farming. And I said, I'm done with that. I'm just finished. And I should keep a few more records than what I do, and I'd be a happier farmer. But it was a choice I made.
Yeah, you're right.
And it's like, the plants know who they are. They know who their ancestors are. They know how that they can grow in my garden, and so I just let them be more natural, and they don't have to have names and numbers and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And then so you just kind of just let, again too, it's just kind of live and let live, throw it out, let it lie, see what kind of comes out, and the strongest will survive. In a sense, it's just really, let an evolution do its thing, in nature and all of that sort of stuff, take its course with whatever you're growing in your space.
Right. In the comments earlier, we were talking about edible weeds. And I really love my edible weeds because they're perfectly locally adapted. They've been growing for 150 years in spite of farmers trying to kill them. They're just beautiful sources of nutrition for me.
Yeah. That was actually our very first, I was just mentioning before we got our segment started, we have our monthly book club that we do. And our very first monthly book club was Ellen Zakos's How to Forage for Wild Food Without Dying, to go and search to go out and search for all those edible weeds, as we would call them, you know what I mean, around that are around us, that we don't look at and think of, because, you know, we look at them as weeds, we look at them as nuisances and stuff, but they're actually really some very, I mean, you find some of the most nutritional things out there. They're just growing wild.
Right. And the other thing that the weeds have going for them is, because I don't bring inputs into my garden, no compost, no fertilizer, the weeds that I grow this year are soil fertility for next year. And so I'm not very particular about weeding. If a variety has to be weeded and it can't survive in my garden without weeding, it probably wasn't meant to be growing in my garden.
Yeah. Right on. Yeah, and I do, and again too, I just really, again, I like really this idea that, you know, it's growing the best, strongest potential plant ultimately. And at that point, I love the idea of resistance, because this is a huge issue for gardeners, is pest control. Everybody's always having issues with pest control, and there's a problem with, you know, these sort of pests. But one of the underlying things I'm learning more as I'm looking into this is just really selection when it comes down to it, what we're bringing in, and we're trying to grow things that just really aren't meant for certain spaces, in a sense.
Well, see,
At the point you've brought them in, right? At the point you've brought them in,
right.
You know what I mean? Not that they can't, here we go, adapt to those spaces.
Another thing that's going on when people buy their varieties from the seed company, those varieties have been developed for a certain type of agricultural system, one that requires weeding, it requires fertilizer, it requires pesticides. And so when you don't give those plants those things that they were grown, you know, for decades in the agricultural system that they come out of, then they don't know how to thrive in gardens where we don't want to use poisons, we don't want to weed, we don't want to put all kinds of materials into the garden and labor.
Yeah, that's awesome. So again, too, let's dig into yourself a little bit too, and then we'll get right back into your garden here, though. Too, where did all this kind of start off, you know, for you here? Because, you know, at some point in time, you know, you've probably been gardening a long time, you know, for a while, as you're realizing and coming up with some of this stuff. You know, what was that journey in a way to get into deciding and putting together the information in putting together this book?
So I grew up on a 6th generation family farm. We just, if there was a problem with our farm, we poisoned it. We put fertilizer on it from the chemical company. And then I went to work in the big city as a chemist, and I was doing all sorts of nasty things with pesticides and herbicides. And one day I had a nervous breakdown. I said, I can't do this anymore. It's so foreign to who I am. And so I went back to my family farm and said, I'm going to be a no input farmer. I'm not going to buy fertilizers. I'm not going to buy poisons. I'm not going to use plastic. And so it really was difficult because I'm growing high elevation in the mountains. And the heirlooms didn't work for me because they're from far away and long ago. The hybrids didn't work for me because they required that chemical control and domination system. And so I was really struggling to grow for market in my valley. And I found a sweet corn where a farmer had taken 200 varieties of sweet corn and allowed them to cross-pollinate in his garden. And I planted those, and it just thrived for me. It jumped out of the ground. It grew like crazy. And then I opened the cobs, and there were reds and oranges and yellows and blues and just this beautiful corn. And I decided at that point that I would convert everything that I grew into that kind of gardening, which at the time we was calling Landrace Gardening. And so I converted like 100 species into genetically diverse, promiscuously pollinating, locally adapted. And I was taking things to farmers market that no other farmer could take to farmers market in my local valley. And that's a really good place to be as a farmer, to have the only okra or the only muskmelon. And so
Yeah.
it was just really beautiful. And after I'd been doing that for about, maybe 11 years, I wrote a book about it. And that's called Landrace Gardening. And it sold over 10,000 copies already.
Wow.
What, a little podunk farmer from nowhere in Utah. And so I've been invited to speak at like the Heirloom Expo where you and I met.
Yeah.
And I toured Europe, speaking at a different community across Europe every day for a
Wow.
month this last October. Just really had a beautiful experience learning from people about how they grow in their areas and sharing some little thing about what I knew.
Yeah. Wow, that's just really great too. Kind of kind of coming back to what, what I was saying myself too, as I was talking about at the beginning of the show, us passing our
Mm-hmm.
million views and stuff. Is just I'm just this little gardener from Southern Oregon who thought he'd put some videos together on YouTube and have some fun with it. Never did I think that that people would, a million people at that would ever click onto them or to take anything I was saying seriously at all, let alone to be where I am today, sitting here interviewing you, who's followed a similar path of like, how did I get here? Look at all this stuff. And just, I just did this, had some ideas. I was having fun along the way, and I thought I'd share it with other people. And then that's where the value comes in, is that we took that little extra step and decided to share it. And that's where things really kind of go in a different direction, right?
Yeah, well, it changed my life because all of a sudden, everything that I plant, everything that I post is colored by the idea of how can I support my fans? How can I educate them, entertain them, help them to grow grow gardens easier with less effort, with less headaches.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just been transformative for me to go from, an internal, how do I make more money at the farmer's market, to how do I help other people to have easier lives.
Yeah, yeah. That's really, and I think that's, I connect with that a lot because I feel that a lot. I spent so many years. I always tell people, I may not look as old as I really am to a lot of people out there, but I've spent a lot of years out there working and chasing a life of money and things and all that sort of stuff, and it's good to have the base stuff kind of taken care of a little bit when it comes down to it. But what I find more value in is the giving away of the knowledge and helping and doing that sort of stuff, you know what I mean? That's and sharing with others and doing that sort of stuff. There's so much more value in that. Building community, like you said, now you've got a whole community around you,
Right.
because of your getting out there and sharing with people, and people have connected with it, so that builds that community. That's amazing in itself too, being able to do those sort of things.
Yeah, well, one of the joys for me in my current role is that I can say to this person, "Oh, you're growing sweet potatoes. You should connect with this other person that's also
Hmm.
growing sweet potatoes." and so that's been really beautiful for me.
Oh yeah. So you really touched on a big one for me though. Really, because of doing this show and even prior to doing this, I was out visiting people all up and down the West Coast and doing that. But after a while of getting to visit enough people and networking with enough people, it was kind of there was this fun in the idea of like, hey, you know, John Kohler, you should go over and check out this person. You know what I mean? And then John would call me up and say, hey, you should go check this person. And in the long run, what we're doing is connecting people with each other. Like you said, you see someone who's doing something that's similar to what someone else is doing, and you go, oh, you two need to come together. We kind of touched on that too. There's a couple of people I think Brandy and I need to try to work on bringing together through our conversation earlier, and that's fun too. Connecting and networking with people really not only helps build community, but it also helps us improve the things that we're doing too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just catching you on that one there, huh? For sure. But yeah, it's the great thing about it, right? I mean, that's what we're doing. We're just trying to build community. We're trying to, help people with the knowledge that we have and kind of help them along and hopefully, bring new people along too, get new gardeners in and enjoying this stuff too, because it's so much fun.
Right. So I see there's a comment that would I like to talk about my carrots. Would that be all right with you, Enoch?
Dottie says, would you want to talk about your carrots? I bet you would like to talk about your carrots, wouldn't you? That's what caught you there, huh, too? I was talking with you and you saw that.
So as a market farmer, I was having a really hard time growing carrots because I wouldn't weed them and they'd get lost, and then I wouldn't be able to pick them for market. And so, that's a organization. It's a failure of me as a human being because I can't weed my garden. And of course, at the time I was growing 4 acres of garden and working it all by myself. So, have some grace for me.
Right, for sure.
But then I'm like, oh, duh. Why don't I apply the principles of adaptation agriculture to my carrots? So I grew a crop of carrots without weeding. And I got a few carrots the first year that were the size of a pencil. Little tiny things. But I saved seeds from them, replanted. The second year, the carrots were like as big as my thumb. And so, making progress with no weeding. And so then the third year, I weeded one time right after they germinated. And I was harvesting carrots that were 3 pounds, 5 pounds. And instead of having these little carrot tops, they were carrot tops that were growing like up to my knee. These big, huge, rambunctious plants. And there's a photo running around the internet somewhere of me holding those big, huge carrots, and they're multicolored, of course, because I love my multicolors. And it says something along the lines of, victory comes not from quarreling with evil, but from pursuing what I love.
Oh, yeah.
And so if there's any meme that represents who I am and what I believe, it would be that meme.
Yeah. And kind of in a sense too, the idea of what you talk about though too in that process of growing those carrots to that point, right?
Mm-hmm.
You let them kind of do their thing, and each season you saw these improvements in their genetics, and next thing you know, they've adapted to that space, and now they're growing better than you've ever grown them. That's pretty cool.
And I think of the third year as the magical year in most of all these breeding projects that I do, because the first year, anything that is totally unsuitable for my garden is just going to go ahead and die. The second year, the best crosses with the best. And so then by the third year, things can really thrive.
Yeah, Shawnee says, on average, would you say the third year is when your saved seed really starts to show its victory?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I mean, some things, yeah, if it's going to show its victory in my garden, it'll show it by the third year. Because
Yeah.
I've tried this with watermelon over and over again, and I grow lots of beautiful watermelon, but not consistently and reliably every single year. And I think I'm just so far out of the comfort zone of the watermelon with my clay soil and the cool temperatures at night that they just can't quite make it reliably.
Yeah.
It would be
And then
like me
that's when
trying,
other factors come in, right?
yeah, it would be like
Yeah.
me trying to grow citrus. I'm never going to grow citrus here. I
Yeah.
could aspire to grow a fig,
Right.
but not an orange.
Oh yeah, definitely figs, I would say for sure. I've been learning a lot more about them, and they're actually a lot more versatile than we think, which is really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
More so than I knew. I've got a couple.
Yep.
They're my new favorite thing right now. I love my figs right now, and I got a couple of really good trees growing right now too. They were
Nice.
like bushes for a couple of seasons, and now they're actually kind of growing into their own this year. So I'm really looking forward to some good ones this year, hopefully.
When I was in Europe, there were figs everywhere, and I fell in love with them. So lucky you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
my
I
my
love it.
current project that I'm really spending a lot of time right now is the promiscuous tomatoes. Um,
Okay.
we went to the Andes Mountains and got some tomato varieties that are 100% outcrossing. And when
Mm.
tomatoes were domesticated, 95% of their genetic diversity was left in the wild. And so when we brought those wild genetics back into my garden, we're finding flavors in the tomatoes that are like melon, guava, tangerine, just these beautiful tropical aromatic flavors. And so that's the project that I'm really focusing on this year. And
Yeah.
and as I get older, it's the project that I expect to carry forward even when all my other gardening fails.
Right. It's good. That's a good one though too. I'm really interested in that. Hopefully uh you're working on it, and maybe it'll be another one of your next books or something too,
Well,
right?
chapter 12 of Landrace Gardening is all about the promiscuous tomatoes.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. Like I said, maybe they'll deserve their own whole book though, right?
um, that would be lovely.
Yeah, it sure would, wouldn't it? Dusty Flats asked earlier, actually, so I want to make sure I get this question in here. Thanks, Dusty. Thanks, everybody, too, for all your great questions. If you do have any questions for Joseph, drop them in real quick here. But Dusty asked, do you ever get a great tasting crop, but the seeds weren't, I guess, were not good, or I'm not sure. Were the seeds not good?
Ooh. So
Not
one time,
carrying the traits you want them to, or so, I suppose.
we'll see every once in a while, I get like a interspecies hybrid of squash, and
Hmm.
the seeds of those generally are not viable. And so I just have one generation of saying, "Oh, this is so cool, and wouldn't it be lovely to reproduce this?" But then the seeds aren't viable. Another time, I introduced a muskmelon, a wild muskmelon, into my patch, and when I was harvesting seeds, the muskmelon was poisonous, and so
Yeah.
I threw away my whole year's worth of seed production because I couldn't risk that poison trait would come over into my muskmelons.
Mm.
But the other 100 muskmelons in the patch were perfectly fine, but I just couldn't trust the seed.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. That's a good example there for sure. Let's see here. Also, Shawnee asked to Joseph, Are you working on any new seed projects in your garden with new plants or anything? I guess we just talked about the tomato ones. Is there anything else though?
Well, I'm like working on domesticating Claytonia and chickweed, because there's some of the weeds that grow natively here, and it would be nice to select for a little nicer flavors, a little bigger leaves on the, and so, a little bit here and there, but mostly my life has been overtaken by being an author and being a popular speaker, and so I'm traveling so much right now that it's really hard to focus on new plant breeding projects.
Right, right. Yeah, again, too, I guess that's kind of in some way the cost of kind of going back to that idea of what we were saying, finding the value in sharing and doing that sort of stuff. If enough people take to what you're sharing, then there becomes kind of a demand for your time, right? To be able to talk about it and to be able to, to bring it to different groups and do that sort of stuff. So that makes a lot of sense. And then, then that, you find that might be the case for a lot of other authors who are working on. We had our good friend Gardner Scott, who just finished his book about raised bed gardening and talked about how it shut down a lot of the things he wanted to do that he normally did, and the production of his videos and all that sort of stuff, because what goes into putting a book together is it takes quite a bit. And then again too, like you said, if it takes off, then you gotta go out and not necessarily promote, but share that book with others.
Yeah, well, I spent 10 weeks on the road last year.
Wow.
And that's not counting, all the time I spend in podcasts and supporting my community and answering questions online.
Yeah, exactly. But it's great though too. Like I said, it's a great idea, and it's in not necessarily idea, but it's a great way of just pointing out something in a way, like I was touching on earlier, that I think we've all kind of dabbled our toes in this idea a little bit as gardeners who are already kind of saving seeds and stuff. But I think it's your book really kind of just clarifies the idea for us. It really puts together really what we're looking at when we're seeing these sort of things, and I think it's just really great to be able to do that. So now, before we, I know I wanted to ask you just a little bit more, but was there anything else about Landrace in this Landrace Gardening and this book that you want to make sure that we talk about before?
Well, I really love the dedication in the book, and it gets to the heart of what I think is valuable, and that is every variety that I'm currently growing was developed by illiterate plant breeders that knew nothing about genetics, biology. There was no professional plant breeders involved. It was all backyard gardeners saving seeds of what they loved.
Yeah.
And if my work has any value, I think it's in giving people permission to do what people have always done, to take care of themselves, to take care of their communities, to save seeds from what they love.
Yeah, exactly. So again, you were saying though too that you're really, really busy and all of that sort of stuff. So, what's your garden growing? You got things growing though, right? I'm sure you always got something growing, right?
Oh yeah,
because again, you're probably just letting things do a lot of stuff and just kind of go about doing some, doing their thing as well too. So I'm sure you got a lot of great things growing out there still.
Because I am so distracted by my community and supporting my community, I'm converting my garden into an ecosystem, a food forest. So I'm planting more trees, more berries, things that can take care of themselves, and I don't have to be constantly tending them. And so I'm moving towards perennials, towards trees, towards self-seeding annuals, so that the
Yeah.
garden can take care of itself. In my ideal ecosystem, my garden would be, I'd walk out into the forest and I would harvest my food for the day.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
so I'm really moving in that direction.
Yeah, yeah, that really again too kind of touches on a little bit of what we were saying earlier too about perennials. I mean, these are always a great thing too. That just find some really good edible perennials. You plant them, and you just maybe do a little care throughout the year on the total plant, and then it just provides and provides year in and year out for you. I mean, you can't beat that at all.
Right. Well, when my daddy was a small boy, he picked apricots from the orchard and he went out into the wildlands and he had a food fight with his cousin. And
Yeah.
so now it's 75 years later, and there's a grove of apricot trees growing out in the wildlands where my daddy and his cousin had their food fight.
Oh, wow.
And if I can mimic that in my garden,
Right.
what a beautiful thing.
That's just great, right? It's, and that's goes to show you just kind of the power of nature in a sense too. If you just kind of set it off and set it free with, spread a few seeds, get them around and whatever, and then just let them do what they do and come back, all this time later and find what they're doing. And you might just find some really thriving plants producing some pretty thriving fruits and edible parts.
Right. So my family came to this valley 165 years ago.
Oh,
And
wow.
the
Yeah.
the first thing that they did was dig canals. And the habit of the canal diggers was to take the apple core that they had harvested and plant the seeds on the ditch bank as they were digging the ditch. And so 165 years later, those apples that they planted are still feeding me and my community.
Yeah. Yeah, that's just great. That's a good long rich history in one place, just generationally, lots of generations and everything too as well.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I mean, it's almost only natural to really know and understand the idea of adaptive in gardening like that, especially with so much generational gardening. There's got to be a lot of things that are just passed down and handed down as well too, right?
Right. And one thing that I'm really sad about is the varieties that my great grandfather grew are totally lost to us. Because my family went down the commercial seed control domination, and all of those seeds were lost to me. So we have no local heirlooms, no local varieties. My great great grandfather developed a variety of wheat, and that actually came back to me, but it came back to me by way of Canada.
Oh, wow. Well, that's good. That's cool. Right on, right on. Let's see here. Shawnee also asked too again, what new perennials have you gathered this year?
So I'm gathering trees this year. So I got some elderberries, some pistachios, mulberries, plums, some oaks, some pecans, just a lot of, and I'm putting decorative flowers into my garden this year. A lot of them are perennials, just for the sake of having more pollinators in my garden and more biodiversity. Because when I toured Europe, one of the things that became really clear to me is that the more life that a garden has in it, the less problems there are from any one particular pest. So
Yeah.
like people were harassing me constantly about slugs. And it's like, yeah, that works good for you in the desert, but what do we do about slugs? And I'm like, well, I don't have a
I don't know.
clue. So I started interviewing every farmer in Europe that I visited about how do you deal with slugs. And
Yeah,
it was really the more life a garden has, the fewer problems there are with slugs. So those people
yeah,
that were moonscaping their gardens and producing a perfectly tilled garden, the slugs were just outrageous. But
yeah.
in the no-till gardens where they had dead hedges, which is a place where you just throw your branches and your excess
Right.
plant matter, um, the gardens had almost no problem with slugs at all.
Yeah, yeah, because you basically fed them, and they've got things to keep them distracted elsewhere, and or things are just plentiful, so they
Exactly.
just don't need to go after the things that you want versus, the things that are
Right.
down low where they can just grab it. I mean, they're going to go for least amount of effort as well, right?
Exactly. And also, there's a whole bunch of beetles and a whole bunch of predatory wasps that really enjoy eating slugs. And so, when you have more ecosystem, you also have more slug predators.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good lesson too there as well too. There's a lot of other things and tactics. Distraction's a big tactic for things, and especially like slugs, where
Hmm.
again, some of these things, I mean, slugs, my squash bugs and things like that. These things find ways to overwinter and hide in places you'll never find them and get to them. And man, they just start coming out like crazy and stuff at times. But there's just ways that you can do and take care of these things by, like you said, keeping a plentiful garden is a good idea too. Just lots
Hmm.
and lots of stuff for them to choose from, or distractions. But man, I'm telling you, lots and lots of great stuff, Joseph, here today. And again, real quick before we let you go, though, here, I just want to kind of talk real quick about some of these talks and stuff like that. Do you have anything coming up that people should know about? Maybe anything online or or anything like that, or anything you want
So,
to kind of promote coming up that you're doing?
I'm going to appear on an episode of The Provident Prepper in the
Okay.
next little while. We did the interview a week ago, so they're just having that in production right now. And other than that, I don't have any upcoming stuff scheduled.
Okay.
There's some possibility I might go to the heirloom. Oh, it's not the heirloom expo. It's the
Oh
that got
yes.
that got
uh
canceled this year.
oh
But
my, I'm so bummed.
the Baker Creek Fall Harvest Festival, maybe
Yeah,
in October, I might get to go to that.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
That would be nice. I'd like to see. I'm trying to talk with him about something, but yeah, I'm really bummed about my pilgrimage. It really, but it really was a bummer to have to deal with COVID and all of that when that came down, and we had to spend those years without it just based on that.
uh-huh.
And then to finally get it back, it's in a new place. We're getting used to it. It's all just, getting the fun and the gang all back together kind of thing. And then boom. So
Yeah.
yeah, kind of a bummer, but hopefully I'll be able to find a way to get out to the farm there too.
Hmm. So there is a video course that we made about our book. That's
Oh, okay.
available on goingtoseed.org, and donors have donated the server costs, so it's a free course.
Oh,
Um,
perfect. Excellent.
and we also there we have online discussion forums. We have a farmer support program. We have a Landrace seed share that we do once a year in about February. And if you're growing seeds and saving them and you want to send them in to us, we'll give you
Yeah.
access to that seed share a month earlier than to the general public.
Oh, okay. That's excellent. And what was that place there too where you can get those lessons?
Goingtoseed.org.
Goingtoseed.org. I'm sure Jay will put a link in the comment for you, for everybody there as well too. Again, free courses. Take advantage of that for sure. definitely. And if you get an opportunity as well too, and you don't have this book here, Landrace Gardening by Joseph Lofthouse, again, we've got a link right down below as well too, where you can find yourself a copy of this as well too. It's such a great book, and literally just some great concepts to really be thinking about, to kind of take us a little bit out of that kind of box or whatever that I think a lot of gardening kind of initially gets locked into, in a sense. And we kind of go with these sort of what we would consider traditional ways and all that sort of stuff. But really, if we think about it, maybe a little more traditional way would be how nature does things, right?
Exactly.
And we might find some real lessons in there, like landrace gardening and adaptive agriculture, right? Yeah. Right on, Joseph. Thank you so much for spending your time here and coming to hang out with us here on the show today. I mean, it's just a really great time to be able to talk with you about this. Again, like I said, something just really we can have more fun with, kind of continue on with what I was saying. Maybe we can have a little more fun with in our garden, in our garden spaces. Just kind of let things be, let things do. Maybe grow out some squash varieties that cross, put them there and let it kind of have fun with it, let it do some things in a sense. And then maybe start creating some race varieties of your own out of your own garden that you can seed save and you can share with your local community, and really kind of just, kind of extend all of that out there and really help promote, gardening and growing the best food that we can, most resistant food that we can, right in our own home gardens and with all of our neighbors and community.
It's been a pleasure to chat to you in a more relaxed setting than what we normally see each other in. So thank you so much for hosting me tonight.
Absolutely. Yeah. Again, too, it really is our pleasure, to be able to have you here and to be able to talk with you about your really great book. Like you said, it's something that people have really connected with, and really, again, too, congratulations to you. You know what I mean? Again, for the sense of, being able to find something, through your life that, has a great amount of value that you can just extend on out to everybody else. And what a great job at doing that and sharing with everybody and making all of that available to all of us. So thanks, man. And congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you.
Right on. Well, Joseph, we'll catch up with you here in just a minute or so, but I'm going to get on to finishing up this show here real quick. And again, everybody, if you haven't had a chance to check out Joseph's books, Landrace Gardening, links down below. Go check it out. Go check out all of his social media out there. Follow along with him. Got any questions? I'm sure he's willing to answer too as well. If you find him through some of those links as well too, go and let him know that you saw him right here on the Let's Get Growing show for such a great, wonderful conversation. And again, Joseph, thank you so much for being here. It was really awesome to talk to you.
Thank you, Enoch.
You got it. All right, right on. I never lie to you guys. Every time I introduce the show and I tell you we're going to have a great show ahead for you with some really great guests and some really fun conversation. And here we are again at the end of another show with some really amazing guests and a really awesome conversations. Really learned a lot and really excited about this book here, Landrace Gardening with Joseph Lofthouse. Again, follow the links down below. Go and check that out and get yourself a copy of this and check that out for sure, as well as Thank you so much to Brandy for coming and hanging out with us as well. The Suburban Gardenista, spending her time talking with us about native plants and the importance of native plants. I mean, two really, really great discussions about two really, really cool topics in the gardening world. So thank you to them for spending their time with us here today and talking all about that. Really, really awesome, really amazing. And like I said, links down below. Go check them out. Go show them some support. Go let them know you saw them here on the Let's Get Growing show. And definitely keep staying tuned right here to the Let's Get Growing show to follow along with all of the amazing, great guests that we have here on the show. We mentioned to you just a little bit earlier about those shows that we had last week, but we got some shows coming up as well too. We got lots more amazing guests coming up in the weeks ahead. Next week, I am really, really looking forward to this. I look forward to having him back on the show anytime I can. I'm from the Pacific Northwest, and for us here in the Pacific Northwest, he's probably one of our more famous, more popular gardeners, and he's so fun, and he has so many great fun stories. We have Cisco Morris join with us back on the show next Saturday on the show. Cisco is an amazing delight to talk to. You're not going to want to miss out on this fun conversation. And I'm sure we're going to dig into a lot of, IPM, integrated pest management, as Cisco is really one of those, just I would call forefathers of integrated pest management, and just really great organic strategies for handling and dealing with pest issues and that sort of stuff. So again, I'm sure we're going to dig into a lot of that and a lot of fun other gardening stories with Cisco next Saturday. So you're not going to want to miss out on that conversation as well too. On Sunday, because we're here on Sunday as well for our Sunday edition of the show, we're going to have a great fun roundtable. And again, authors are kind of our thing right now. We are in a real author, guest kick right now. Cisco on Saturday, he's an author of a couple of books as well as being a TV and local Northwest personality. But Karen Hugh, she wrote a book. These two for our next Sunday roundtable have been featured on our monthly gardening book club as well too. Cisco too as well. So I guess it's kind of a monthly gardening book club reunion next week. I didn't even think about, but we got Karen Hugh joining with us. She's the author of the book Leave Your Troubles Behind. And we have Ashley Thomas, the Mocha Gardener, joining with us as well for this fun gardening conversation. She wrote the book How to Become a Gardener. Really wonderful authors. We've had some amazing conversations with them already. I thought it would be great to bring those two authors together to have a fun roundtable conversation with the three of us and all of you as well too, because that is one of the fun things about this show. That's what makes this show so fun for me each and every weekend, to show up here to have these great conversations with all these great guests, is to have them with all of you as well too, because these live streams allow you all to be a part of the conversation. You get to drop in all those great questions, and thank you for the great questions for our guests today. I really appreciate that. But that just goes to show how fun this is as far as a gardening community for us all to get together, to be able to talk about our interests together that we don't normally get to throughout the week, as we were talking about before. But just again, too, really great opportunity, and I look forward to hopefully seeing you again next week for some of those shows as well too. So before we head out here today, you know the drill, everybody. Let's click that like button, hit the thumbs up real quick if you haven't already, and subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell notification so you can be notified of all of our upcoming Let's Get Growing shows and videos. As I was mentioning too before at the beginning of the show, we got lots and lots of new videos. I think I'm really getting back into the swing of things when it comes to getting that video content out. I've got another garden journal coming out this next week, as well as more videos in our pepper growing series, where I'm taking you through my whole pepper growing process that I've been doing for years here in my small space garden. So definitely follow along with all of our videos videos there too, and share with all of your friends. Let them know about the Let's Get Growing show. Let them know in all your garden groups, garden clubs, and all of that. And let them know about all of these great guests that we get to talk with here each and every weekend on the Let's Get Growing show every, like I said, Saturday and Sunday, 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I still haven't changed it yet, but I will real soon here. And we'll put 7 p.m. BST as well for all of you over there in the UK as well who follow along with us too. So thank you all so much for being here, and definitely follow all the links down below to all of our guests and everything. And like I said, go get some seeds at Sarah's Seed Shop, sarahseedshop.com. Go check out our sponsor, Ivy Organics, at ivyorganics.com. Use our promo code GROW10. Get some of that 3-in-1 plant guard. And again, everybody, thanks for being here. I really had a great time with you, and I look forward to seeing all of you on our show this very next week. So I'll see all of you. We'll see all of you then.